There seems to be an awful lot of discussion about shelf life of solder. Some people say that when it gets to the date, it's bad, get rid of it. Other people say it'll last for a really, really long time. I got answers. Hey everybody, Dave Johnson here with Aggressive Fun. Today we're going to be talking about shelf life of solders. Seems to be a contentious debate. I don't care if it's from a video blogger or if it's from a website blog, if it's from electronic design or Element 14, anywhere where there's a forum where people can talk about solder, you always have this argument of the date, the manufacturer date on the spool, like these guys commonly have, and also, or the alpha. The alpha actually gives you a manufacture date and an expiration date. Kester just gives you the manufacture date. In both cases, they're saying for solders that have 70% or less lead, it's a 3-year warranty. What the 3-year warranty means is that they cannot guarantee the performance of the product beyond 3 years. Now I'll tell you in a minute. I have two descriptions that are the definitive answers to this argument. Whenever it comes up, you can use these two arguments to shut everybody off because they're definitive. And I'll get to them in just a minute. I did some research. I went and I talked with people at Kester and I talked with people at Alpha. Both manufacturers, very consistent. Like I said, both of them have this 3-year limitation for the common alloys that you would use to solder on circuit boards. Both Kester and Alpha have similar descriptions within their data sheets. Kester says solder wire storage must be in a dry, non-corrosive environment between 10 to 40 degrees C or 50 to 104 degrees F. Who can't meet that? Flux cord solder wire has a limited warranty period determined by the alloy used in the wire. For alloys containing more than 70% lead, the warranty period of 2 years from the date of manufacture is 2 years from the date of manufacture. Other alloys have a warranty period of 3 years from the date of manufacture. So basically it's 3 years for, we don't use solders on circuit boards that have more than 70% lead. Why would you do that? We're dealing with a 3-year warranty. Alpha also said, although cord wire has an expiration date, it does not necessarily mean that the wire used past the expiration date is no longer capable of producing acceptable solder joints. That's a key statement. Let me read it again. Even though it has an expiration date, it does not necessarily mean that the wire used past the expiration date is no longer capable of producing acceptable solder joints. A 3-year shelf life is a conservative limit. They go on to say, independent research indicates the core wire has a practically unlimited, let me read that again, practically unlimited shelf life. And this is Alpha's, so that was from independent research, and this is Alpha's experience as well. However, some users require shelf life to be declared on all products, which is the purpose of the shelf life that is applied to core wire products. That brings me to my definitive answer. Here are the two things. If you don't get anything else out of this video, I hope you do because you want to get your favorite solder. But these two things are critically important because this argument is going to come up. In fact, I sell some solder on eBay and on Amazon and on Tindy. I had a potential buyer, he actually didn't buy, but a potential buyer came to me and said, a spool that you're selling on eBay has a date that was 2018. And he's saying, I'm not going to pay you the new price because I've already lost a year of it. Well, we went through this whole thing. He said that he didn't want to offend me. I said, can't offend me. I don't even know you. And he went on about how flux degrades and you have to take into account that date. And I kept telling him, no, The solder will go on forever, and I have a spool that's gone almost 40 years and is still going strong. So if you buy the high quality type solders, Kester, Alpha, Multicore, Loctite, AIM, any of those, they're going to last for a long period of time. And he still wouldn't believe me. He didn't buy. He wanted to go with a distributor. And the thing about buying them from distributors, I've bought spools from particular distributors. I won't say who they are, but I get them and they're a year past their manufacturing date. So if it's really true they're going to expire in 3 years, then I should be pissed because I just lost a year of it. And in one of my two, that actually is a critical thing. So here, I'll tell you what they are. Got to remember this is critical. The person who says they expire on that date and they're unusable after that date, they're actually right with respect to ISO applications. The ISO requirements say that if you have material that's beyond an expiration date, you cannot use it in one of your products because it won't then meet the specifics that you have signed up to for that particular product. So the ISO system deals with numbers, they deal with dates, they have to have something that's solid. Something like this that has no date on it could never be used in an ISO system and keep the thing according to those specifications because there's no deadline, there's no date. Drives that system crazy. So number one is the date has to be followed if it's an ISO system, okay? But this number one has nothing to do with the actual usability of the solder. Because number two then applies to the huge majority of the rest of us, me included. I don't have any projects that require anything ISO, so I don't worry about that at all. All I care about is, does the solder work? Okay, that's number two. And number two is, and this is according to Dave, okay? Use the solder until it doesn't work anymore or until you notice a change. Why would you, with an arbitrary date, decide to throw away however much of solder is left just because you think that it has expired? And if you I guess it's actually an advantage of the manufacturer. They sell more solder that way. They want you to throw it away after the 3-year period of time. But as I read before in the Kester and the Alpha data sheets, they know it can last indefinitely. Alpha specifically said that. So don't throw it away. And we're all smart guys. If we're using the solder and we get partway through a spool and it goes past the 3-year date, you're not going to throw that away. It still works fine. It didn't fall off of some kind of cliff at that date and become totally unusable. No way. Keep using it. So that's my number two. Number one is, for ISO, yes, you have to follow the dates just because it's the way that their specification and their regulations work. Number two, if it continues to work, it doesn't matter what that date is, as is the perfect example here. This has no date. It still works just fine. It's 39 years old. Give me a break. So you can solve that argument with those two things. You know, and it kind of smooths over the guy that's adamant, says, oh no, the flux is degrading, the metal, the alloys are oxidizing, they will not function beyond that date. Well, no. You can't use it beyond that date if you're trying to stay ISO rated. But if that's not the case, then just use it until it seems to not work anymore. And my experience has been, it's going to be a really long time that solder will continue to work. So in the research that I referred to before, I actually got a lot of really good information from both Alpha and from Kester. The Kester information, just as a kind of a wrap up to this whole thing, the statement it's really definitive. It says, the solder wire may be good for years or decades after the warranty period is over. We just cannot guarantee it. And then also, the applied spool will be 100% as good as if the spool was brand new, given that the degrading happens to the wire with no effect to the soldered joint. So I hope that resolves this big question. If you're ISO rated and you have to maintain that requirement with respect to your project, then yeah, you can't use that solder after a particular date. But if you have solder that goes beyond that date and you can't use it anymore in your company, send it to me. I'll use it up for you. And then the second one is, solder lasts for a really, really long time. I love the statement that was said before, made by Alpha, and that is, independent research indicates that core wire has a particularly unlimited shelf life, and that is Alpha's experience as well. So you can determine when it's changing, if it's different, if there for some reason the flux isn't making the solder flow as well as it did before. You'll know. But as I said before, my 39-year-old spool still going strong. I used it multiple times to do the previous video. It works great. In fact, it even looked like it worked a little bit better than the brand new spool of identical specified solder. Go figure. So if you have a different experience, I know that some people do have bad experiences with solder that has gone bad, and I'd love to hear them. Leave them down in the comments down below. Would love to have a discussion about it. And to clarify, all of this discussion is based on solder wire that's cored with flux. It's very different if you're talking about paste solder. One thing I will say with respect to paste, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this video. We'll do that later on in another future part of this series on soldering. But paste solder, in all of my research, I also found some information that said that because the balls in the paste are completely encompassed by the flux, that over a much shorter period of time the solder can react with the flux and the balls will start sticking together, which makes it a thick paste, and it won't spread evenly and do like it's supposed to. So with paste solder, they say that it's a 6-month, typically what I've heard is there's a 6-month life with respect to it, or there is a physical change that can occur. Now, like I said, in my research I found a description where a guy went through the process over an 18-month period of time using the same paste solder and then documenting it each month as he went through if there was any kind of change, if it worked properly. And it worked properly clear until he got to the 18th month. And at 18 months, the properties changed enough that it wasn't the same kind of paste solder anymore. So that's anecdotal. Your mileage may vary. You just have to be aware of the characteristics of the particular solder that you're using. If you've had it for a while and it doesn't seem to be working right, maybe it is time to get a new batch. One other thing that I wanted to touch on right here at the end is I've told the story about this spool where I bought it in 1980, so it's roughly 39 years old, and I only used that much of it because I went on to other either no clean or this is a leaded 6040 solder. I may have gone to a lead-free type solder for other requirements, and so for whatever variety of those reasons it's never got used up completely, but obviously I paid the full price for it originally. So to kind of alleviate that, especially if you're wanting to try new solders, wanting to try either different fluxes, different alloys, whether it be leaded or whether it be lead free with silver or without silver, different diameters, all of those variations can be found in the links down below the video, as well as on eBay and on Amazon. I've got cut length solder, which gives you a smaller quantity of whatever of those types that you want to try out or that you need without having to buy a full spool. So the pricing is much cheaper than a full spool, and you don't have a huge amount of surplus left over for years and years to come. So you may want to try those out again. Check out the links down below. We have a large variety of those. I'm also really curious about any of your experiences, if you've had bad ones with solder. I know a lot of these forums and discussions that I've checked out, people will very explicitly say that they had some solder that went bad. I'd love to hear about those, especially which manufacturer, what the circumstances were. Leave them down below in the comments. I'd love to check that out. And also, if you have a bad sample and you want me to take a look at it and compare it to all of the other solders that I've tried out, I'm happy to do that as well. So go ahead and, if you'd like, go ahead and send me some samples and we'll give them a look. So let's all keep on soldering. Let's get some great ideas and make some awesome products. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.